Federal HST 124 grain plus P. We're starting with the round that shows up on more issued duty belts than almost anything else in this particular caliber. Federal HST. HST is a bonded jacketed hollow point, meaning that the lead core is chemically bonded to the copper jacket instead of just being pressed together. This is important because bonded construction keeps the bullet from shedding weight when it punches through things like heavy clothing, drywall, or a car door on its way to the target. The 124 grain plus P version runs right around 1,200 feet per second out of a standard duty length barrel. What makes HST stand out in independent testing is how consistently it expands. The hollow point cavity is engineered so that the skived petals peel back evenly instead of clogging with fabric and stopping, which is one of the most common ways cheaper hollow points fail. Federal built the HST specifically to pass rigorous barrier testing that mimics real-world defensive scenarios. This includes heavy clothing, wallboard, plywood, and automotive glass, all before ever reaching the target itself. If you take one thing away about this ammo, it's that HST is the round most likely to already be sitting in a police cruiser's magazine in your city, and that's not a coincidence. It is one of the most reliable rounds you can get for your gun today. If breaking down ammo like this without the fluff is useful to you, go ahead and hit subscribe now, because we've got 8 more to get through. Speer Gold Dot, 124 grain plus P. Gold Dot has been mainstream in law enforcement holsters for over 2 decades. The reason lies in a manufacturing process called the Uni-Core bonding method. Instead of bonding the jacket to the core with adhesive or heat alone, this process electroplates the copper jacket directly onto the lead core during casting. The result is a bullet that holds together almost regardless of what it hits on its way toward its target. At 124 grains and loaded at plus P pressure, this round travels at speeds comparable to the HST, generally around 1,150 to 1,200 feet per second, depending on your barrel length. What sets Gold Dot apart in a lot of independent gel tests is its penetration consistency. It reliably lands in the widely cited 12 to 18-inch range that ballistic testing protocols look for, even after passing through 4 layers of denim. Gold Dot has quietly become one of those rounds that you just cannot go wrong with. Whenever the conversation turns to defensive ammunition, it isn't flashy and it isn't new, and that's exactly what you want in your 9mm ammo. Federal Punch 124 grain. Next, we have Federal Punch, a newer entry on this list. It was designed with a specific customer in mind: people who want premium defensive performance without a premium price tag. Federal built the Punch to be simpler than their flagship HST line, using a straightforward hollow point design without some of the complex internal geometry we discussed before. However, you shouldn't mistake simpler for worse. In head-to-head gel testing, the Punch has repeatedly shown comparable penetration depth and expansion, often landing bullets in that same 12 to 18-inch window, even through simulated clothing barriers. It runs at standard pressure rather than plus pressure, which means noticeably softer recoil and less wear on your firearm over time. This is something worth considering if you plan to carry your gun during practice sessions. The Punch has quickly become a favorite recommendation for newer gun owners, specifically because it removes one of the biggest financial barriers to training with your real carry ammunition instead of relying on cheaper practice rounds and hoping you'll adapt to your defensive load. Norma MHP 108 grain. This one takes a completely different engineering approach than everything we've covered so far. The MHP stands for monolithic hollow point, and unlike traditional jacketed hollow points, there is no separate lead core or copper jacket to worry about. This entire bullet is machined from a single solid piece of copper. Because there is no lead core to separate from a jacket, weight retention numbers on this round are genuinely remarkable, with testing showing it holding on to 97 to 99% of its original 108 grain weight after passing through barriers. It leaves the muzzle fast, right around 1,300 feet per second, which is noticeably quicker than most of the other rounds on our list. This speed helps the hollow point cavity open reliably. Even tougher materials like leather, which can be a weak point for traditional lead core hollow points, aren't a problem for this one. If you prioritize barrier performance against thick car doors, heavier winter clothing, or anything that might realistically stand between you and your target, This construction is specifically engineered to solve that exact problem. Remington Golden Saber Black Belt 124 grain plus P. Golden Saber has been a respected name in defensive ammunition for more than 2 decades. The Black Belt version of their design incorporates a specific innovation, a mechanical locking belt at the base of the bullet, which locks the copper jacket to the lead core. This detail is crucial because when a hollow point bullet hits something tough, like automotive glass or a thick interior wall, the jacket and core can sometimes separate, drastically reducing the bullet's performance. The mechanical belt is designed to prevent this failure. Independent gel testing has shown that this round maintains virtually all of its original 124 grain weight even after passing through cloth barriers, with expansion diameters consistently exceeding half an inch. Phenomenal results. At plus P pressure, velocities run around 1,180 feet per second, putting it right in line with top-tier options on the market. If barrier performance and jacket integrity are your top priorities, this is one of the most thoroughly engineered solutions available. Quick pause here. If you're finding this breakdown genuinely useful, go ahead and subscribe now. It helps more than you'd think, and we've still got some interesting 9mm options coming up. Underwood Extreme Defender 65 grain plus P. Now we're moving into territory that looks nothing like a traditional hollow point. The Extreme Defender is machined from solid copper into a shape that resembles a fluted drill rather than an actual bullet. It doesn't expand on impact, which is completely intentional. Instead of relying on expansion, the fluted nose is engineered to force fluid and tissue outward as the bullet spins through it at extremely high rotational speeds. This creates a wound cavity through hydraulic displacement rather than mechanical deformation. Because it never mushrooms or deforms, it is genuinely barrier blind, meaning its performance is almost identical whether it passes through heavy clothing, wallboard, or automotive glass. At just 65 grains, this is a very light round compared to anything else on the list. It leaves the barrel at a genuinely startling velocity, commonly clocked around 1,700 to 1,800 feet per second out of a standard duty-length barrel. The lightweight and high-velocity combination also means noticeably less felt recoil, which some shooters find makes fast, accurate follow-up shots considerably easier under stress. This is a polarizing round in the ammunition community specifically because it breaks from decades of hollow point convention. However, its barrier performance in independent testing has been rather impressive. Inceptor ARX 65 grain plus P. Inceptor ARX takes a philosophy similar to the Extreme Defender with its non-expanding, barrier-focused performance, but gets there through completely different materials and geometry. Instead of solid copper, the bullet is injection molded from a proprietary blend of copper and high-tensile strength polymer. This gives it a lighter overall weight and a very distinctive fluted profile. As the bullet travels through soft tissue, the internal flutes are designed to channel fluid outward at roughly 1.5 to 2 times the bullet's forward speed. This is known as the Venturi effect in fluid dynamics. Rather than creating a single straight wound channel, it forms a wider, more turbulent cavity as the bullet travels through in a controlled, predictable pattern. The damage here is significant because there is no cavity to clog and no expansion to rely on. ARX functions almost like a standard round-nose bullet in your magazine, which some shooters find improves reliability in less than ideal conditions. Muzzle velocity typically lands around 1,650 feet per second for the 65 grain plus P loading, and felt recoil is noticeably softer than heavier, conventional defensive rounds. This is another point to consider for shooters who want quick and controlled follow-up shots. Liberty Civil Defense 50 grain plus P. If the last 2 rounds seemed lightweight to you, this one goes even further. At just 50 grains, this is one of the lightest defensive 9mm loads on the market, and it leaves the barrel at a blistering 2,000 feet per second, speeds you would typically associate with a rifle round rather than a pistol cartridge. This is a fragmenting hollow point, meaning the lead-free copper bullet is specifically engineered to break apart into multiple pieces on impact rather than staying together as a single expanding projectile. Independent gel testing has documented a core that continues penetrating around 10 to 12 inches, while separate fragments spread outward, creating a wound cavity reported at up to 3.5 inches wide, which is considerably larger than what a traditional expanding hollow point typically produces. The trade-off here is recoil control, and in some cases reliability. Because the bullet is dramatically lighter than a standard 9mm load, Some shooters have reported cycling issues in certain guns with this round compared to heavier, standard-weight ammunition. So, if you're considering this round for carry or home defense, testing several magazines through your specific firearm is essential before making it your primary choice. While we wouldn't recommend it as your main defense load, it can still produce a considerable amount of damage on target when executed right. Federal Syntech Training, match 124 grain. We're closing out this list with something a little different. A round that you're not actually meant to carry, but one that solves a real problem defensive shooters run into constantly. Syntech Training Match uses a polymer-coated bullet instead of a traditional copper jacket, which dramatically reduces barrel fouling and copper buildup, making cleanup after long-range sessions noticeably easier. But here's the important part. Federal engineered this specific load to produce the exact same velocity, trajectory, and point of impact as their HST personal defense line in the same bullet weight. That means when you're at the range building muscle memory and confirming your zero, you're training with a round that behaves identically to the one loaded in your home defense gun, without burning through expensive premium hollow points just to practice. A lot of shooters make the mistake of practicing exclusively with cheap bulk ammunition that behaves completely differently than their actual defensive load in terms of recoil and point of impact. Pairing your real carry ammunition with a ballistically matched training round like this one closes that gap completely, making it one of the most underrated upgrades defensive shooters can make to their training routine. These 9 rounds cover everything from proven law enforcement standards to lightweight fragmenting loads and barrier-blind solid copper designs. Which one matches your needs? And did any of these surprise you? Let us know in the comments below and subscribe for more breakdowns that skip the usual jargon and provide straightforward ammunition knowledge.